Welcome to Pathetic, the podcast. Another week has come and gone. Your favorite guys are back. Mikey, how are you?
Spoiler alert, I am all kinds of jacked up today. We have made it through the winter. That long period of time between the Super Bowl and March Madness. March Madness is a nice little appetizer for everybody, but we got opening day coming up on Thursday. I'm all ready to go. I got my tickets. I looked up the new food offerings at Yankee Stadium. I am ready to go and talk some baseball and talk some predictions here. Jeff, how are we doing today?
Bittersweet. My St. John's lost, which was a little disappointing, and we'll get into that. Obviously, we have spring training. Man, I'm still stuck in spring training mode. Opening day in a couple of days, so everything is great. Can't wait for baseball. I'm so excited.
Mikey, we're definitely going to include your food choices for baseball when we do get to talking about baseball. All right. I just want to let everybody know, if you're enjoying the show, please like and subscribe on YouTube. We are also on Instagram and on Facebook. And you'll see right above our heads, it'll say Pathetic, the podcast at gmail.com. Drop us a line. A lot of people are utilizing that. We love that. We love hearing from everyone. But let's get started. Jeff mentioned St. John's and March Madness, so we definitely want to start with that. First two rounds. If you remember last week, Mike told everyone he was going and spending 2 days in the casino where he can bet all the games and watch the games with a buddy of his who came up from South Carolina. Mikey, how did that go?
It was glorious. We had such a good time. We were up, we were down, we were sideways. We had a fun time. I think all in all, netting everything, I think I maybe spent $200 the entire time, which is amazingly did well. The overs, if you rode with us, you had some dry spells where everything went under, but you did have a couple of times there where everything was going over, and you were just rooting for points. And we got a couple of real cheapies where we got garbage threes at the end of those games to hit those overs, which was very cool. But shout out to Wind Creek Bethlehem. They know how to do it for March Madness. They had all the tables open. They had the sports book open. The food inside the sports book there is fantastic. It was just a great couple of days of just sitting down with the boys, having some beers, betting some sports, throwing some dice at the craps table. Fantastic. Have some thoughts on the first two rounds as well. I think very chalky. A lot of the favorites did well. Like I said, I think St. John's ran into what we thought they were going to run into, where if they can't score and they run into a team who can score or can play better defense than they can, you're going to have a problem. So I think that is where they ran into. But my Final Four is still alive. I have Florida. I have Michigan State. I have Duke, and I have Kentucky as my Final Four. So,
nice.
Still alive, still doing well. One of my brackets, I think, only missed 3 games so far, which is, it's hard when you have all kinds of chalk. I'm sure, like Ted, your granddaughters could probably pick all the favorites, and they would be doing pretty well as well in these games. So
I know they'd be doing better than I did.
Yeah, not a lot of craziness. We did have one buzzer beater the other night in the Maryland game, which was awesome. I was so excited to see that going. But Jeff, I'm curious to hear about your thoughts on the end of the St. John's season and where we think we are going forward.
Well, going forward, I think we'll be fine. I think that's probably the one thing I can hang my hat on as a St. John's fan. The future still looks bright. We'll see what happens, of course, but in theory, they should be good, and hopefully this continues. And I said last week, I'm just happy that St. John's is back. But, listen, outside of that, there's no sugarcoating it. That was a really bad loss. And, we could do a whole show on everything I hated about this game. First of all, the refs were atrocious. 44 fouls in this game, and many of them were complete BS. Now, that doesn't exonerate St. John. So, to me, I think I have to start with the coaching. Look, I know that R.J. Lewis did not play well. He was 3 for 18 from the field, and that's not going to cut it. I don't care if you're playing Rutgers or Duke. It doesn't matter. You can't have your best player going 3 for 18. But you take him out of the game permanently, right? That was a really, really dumb decision by Pitino. And I want to take you guys back just to kind of give you a point of reference. Back to 1996. Okay, UConn played Georgetown in the Big East Championship, and Ray Allen was having a horrendous day. Okay, he was 4 for 17, really almost identical to Lewis. And did Calhoun take him out? Of course he didn't, right? He kept him in the game despite his struggles. And what do you think happened? Ray Allen went 5 for 18, still not a great day, but the 5th basket was the game-winning shot. Okay. Yeah. In an elimination game, you don't take the best player out for the rest of the game, right? I thought that was a classic case of overcoaching from Pitino. But you know what, guys? Let's put the coaching aside for a second because the coach can't do everything. They missed layups. They were 2 for 22 from downtown, 9% field goal percentage, 9%. I mean, that's like YMCA rec league type stuff, right? Yeah. You can't win with those kind of stats. I don't care who you're playing. So they were god awful. The way they played on Saturday too, I'm watching the game. I think I texted you guys. I'm like, it's going to be close, but I didn't think they'd win. I actually just did not. They weren't hitting enough shots. I think they only had a 4-point lead at most. But what really sucks for St. John's too is, they're the first 2 seed to get eliminated. Right? So that's just adding another pinch of salt to this wound. But as a St. John's fan, right, if you're reflecting on the season, which is essentially what you're doing now, this put a damper on it. It really did. I don't think there's any question. You got to think about, you won the Big East tournament, the number 2 seed, Hall of Fame coach. To me, the Sweet 16 was a requirement, right? That's zero. That's like ground zero for you, right? With great achievements comes great expectations. So to get bounced in the second round the way they did, it's like, what a disappointment. But on a lighter note, the good news is they're back. They have the funding. They have a great coach, so they'll always have talent. So on a positive, direction, they're back. But I'd be lying if I said it wasn't a deflating loss.
I'll tell you, I had a completely different take on the NCAA tournament than just looking at the individual games and the results. I was disappointed in St. John's. I picked them. One of my brackets, I had them winning the whole thing. But the thing that I looked at was, and Mike, you hit on it, a lot of chalk won. And you're not going to see, unfortunately, those tremendous runs by mid-majors anymore. And the reason is because of the NIL money.
Yep.
So when you look at teams like St. Peter's, like a Manhattan, like an Iona, like a Butler, teams like that, you're not going to see them having those. They might have one game, like right off the bat. But when push comes to shove, they're not going to be able to compete against these teams. It's almost like the Los Angeles Dodgers versus the Kansas City Royals, kind of when you look at the payroll thing. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking to myself, I wonder if it's better off for some of the teams, like the teams in the MAC, the Peters, the Monmouth, the Quinnipiacs, all those teams, to maybe drop down to Division II. Because they're not going to be able to compete ever. It's over now. It's you may get lucky and you may win your conference and you may make the NCAAs. And okay, so you make $1 million by getting in, but you're not going anywhere anymore. You're just not. And that's very disheartening because, Mike, you remember me 3 years ago. I was all kinds of jacked up, as Mike would say. I mean, that was, to me, of all my sports moments in all my years, the greatest thing I've ever seen. I thought the miracle at Lake Placid was the greatest thing I ever saw. That's number 2 right now. That Peters run to the Elite 8 was amazing. That's never going to happen again. Never. And that, to me, that's why I lost a lot of interest in the tournament, especially once St. John's got knocked out. I lost a lot of interest, and well, unfortunately, that's just the way it is. Life marches forward.
Well,
I don't want to sound like the old guy, get off my lawn guy, but
well,
that's
the
what
one
I'm
thing I
saying.
will say is
Get off my lawn.
the one thing I will say is we're gonna have the next weekend on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You're going to have probably the best slate of games that you've seen in a long time in the Sweet 16 in terms of just
Yeah.
really good teams going up against each other,
Yeah.
where you're not going to have, a team that maybe gets to the Elite Eight and gets smoked by 25 or 30 points when
Right.
when the Cinderella strikes midnight. It is exciting when they get there, but you want those games to get better as the tournament goes along as well. So I think, yes, you're losing some of those, and I think you still could get a team that makes it to the Sweet 16. But you're going to get these powerhouse matchups that you wouldn't get. I mean, Tennessee, Kentucky
that's going to be great.
There, you got Arizona and Duke. I mean, you have like these big matchups that you normally wouldn't get until the Final Four and in the Sweet 16. And you're going to get one after the other, and you're just going to get the big guys going, and you're going to see some really good basketball. I think you're going to see a lot more close games, hopefully some more buzzer beaters. But I think the next round is where you're really going to see the tournament, go to the next level in terms of the quality of the games that are going on.
Well, I definitely want to see that Duke-Arizona game because to me, the real thing that jumps out at me is Danny Hurley coaching Arizona against his former Duke team. I mean, that I don't know that they've ever faced each other in the tournament before with him as the coach. So I think that's going to be pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be an exciting rest of the way for sure. I'm looking forward to the games. A lot of, like you said, Mike, a lot of good matchups. So that's again.
Yeah.
And I guess, for me, sometimes when your team is out of it, you look at it like, all right, now I can sit back and enjoy the games instead of being stressed out, right?
Yep.
And how many times are our teams out of every playoff except baseball? It's
Right.
like, all right, now I can kind of enjoy it. I don't need to be stressed. So,
Right.
But you're right, a lot of good games coming up.
Or you can take my attitude. I hope everybody loses.
Yeah.
Well, just before we went live, Jeff and I were talking, and the Giants added to their quarterback room. It's getting pretty crowded there now.
Shocker.
But, Jeff, why don't you bring us up to date on what's going on with the New York Football Giants?
So I'm pumped. The Giants, literally about an hour before we came on, signed Russell Wilson to in my opinion, a steal of a deal. And you know what's funny, guys? Russell Wilson never really crossed my mind to be the right move up until the last couple of weeks, right? Because I just didn't initially feel like he was a good fit. But the more you analyze it and the more you think about it, it actually makes a lot of sense. And, throughout the weeks, I've been saying the Giants need a bridge quarterback to one of the rookies they draft this year or even next year, who knows, contingent on that bridge quarterback being able to win games, right? And Russell Wilson accomplishes both of those. He signed a 1-year deal. That's the bridge, right? And he's good enough still to win games. I didn't want Jameis Winston starting next year, who has a 44-61 career win-loss record. He'll give you 25 touchdowns and make it fun for you, but it'll be coupled with 30 to 35 interceptions, right? Russell Wilson's going to give you the same 25 to 30 touchdowns, but per usual, like he always is, he'll be in single-digit interceptions like always, right? And I think a couple of years he had like 10 or 11, but he respects the football, right? He's not a wild man. And, guys, this is quite literally the definition of low risk, high reward, right? 1 year, 21 mil, 10 mil guaranteed. That's a steal for the Giants. And the 1-year deal to me, and this is important, it also validates the rumors that we've been hearing that Russell Wilson wants to be here, right? We've heard that for the last week. I'm like, why would he want to be here to the Giants? But the fact that he wants to be here is another positive for me. 1 year, 21 is nothing for a quarterback of his caliber. I mean, Kirk Cousins and Daniel Jones got paid way more for way longer, and they couldn't carry his suitcase, Russell Wilson, right? And I know Rodgers, and this is important too, because I know I was on the Rodgers train. I know Rodgers was, he was my original hope, but let me just explain the mind change. Because if I change my convictions in sports, in life, I require myself to give an explanation. Okay, so let me just break it down. Rodgers and Wilson, if you look at those two, right, they're pretty even at this point of their careers in terms of effectiveness. And, maybe one's a little better. You can kind of go back and forth, but pretty much even. Rodgers is going to want a lot more money than what we're giving Russell Wilson. So as a bridge, which is exactly what we're looking for, we're not looking for the answer. We're looking for a bridge that can win. If you factor in the finances and the talent, Russell Wilson was the better option. So I'm ecstatic about it.
Good. That's listen. I think I think your two guys that you signed are a better option than Rodgers. I really do. As I said to you before the show, I was more hyped up about Jameis Winston because even though he's a turnover machine. I saw a lot of Russell Wilson last year, and at no time did he ever really raise the level of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, listen, it wasn't all him. The Steelers were a very flawed team, but I think that Jameis Winston's pretty exciting. And again, either one of them would be a fine bridge. It's going to be interesting to see. Do you draft a quarterback? Listen, if it's me, I'm waiting until next year because next year there's going to be 6 or 7 that come out that could be in the top 35 picks.
I would have no problem with that whatsoever. That's going to be up to the Giants, right? Because I'm not watching these quarterbacks on a weekly basis, so they know more than I do. But I will just one thing about the Wilson thing that you mentioned. You mentioned he didn't raise the level of the team in certain spots, and I don't disagree with that at all. By the way, that is definitely true. But if you think about the options available, Aaron Rodgers didn't raise the level. Jameis Winston never. I mean, maybe a couple times in his career, but he didn't raise the level. So out of all the options,
Jameis,
I had no problem with Jameis. Listen, I was ready to give like a positive twist on Jameis before Wilson came. I don't hate the guy. I'm happy he's a Giant. He'll have fun. But yeah, this was the right move. Mike, what did you think of them signing Wilson?
Yeah, I mean they I don't think you could go in with Winston and Tommy Cutlets as your two quarterbacks going into the year. I mean, Winston is probably going to get hurt or to the point where he's going to throw so many interceptions where you probably can't keep him in a game. And one thing that Dable does not like is a guy who is reckless with the football. So I think you had to bring in someone who is at least a professional and is a game manager per se, and is not going to be someone who is careless with the football, because you saw when Daniel Jones was throwing the football all around, you could tell that Dable was just ready to lose
seething.
So,
against the Titans.
Could just see it exactly. So, it would be fun to see if he could fix those mistakes with Winston. But as you said last week, there's a lot of footage already out there and a lot of evidence to the contrary that you're not going to be able to stop him from making all those turnovers. So I think as you said, it's not a huge amount of money. It's not a huge risk that you're taking. And if you're going to be taking a quarterback in the first round, obviously those are two great people to sit in front of. One to show you how to be a professional, and one to say, hey, you need to sometimes throw it out there and be aggressive with the football.
It's a great point, Mike.
So I think those two things are great to sit behind. But if you also take Travis Hunter, you got to love those two neighbors and Travis Hunter in the first round. I think you're going to be really excited I would want to throw the quarterback for those two receivers. So
absolutely.
And listen, there is nothing more than I would love than to have the fun side of Jameis Winston with the good quarterback play. If I can merge those two together and create one quarterback, I would be excited. And I wish I can say, yeah, Brian Dable can fix him for sure. But let's say he does fix him, right? Let's just say he does, harness the interception problem, kind of like he did with Daniel Jones. Now you're actually taking away from Jameis Winston's game, which is just being a wild man and having fun.
That's true.
If you stop him from having fun, now he's going to turn into Daniel Jones maybe, right? So it's just I didn't love the fit with Jameis, and that's why I was like, I'm not happy. I'm not pissed. It's Jameis Winston. It is what it is. But, again, I don't expect the 2012 Russell Wilson, but I expect the Russell Wilson for the Giants that I believe can go out there and win football games for this team. And listen, the proof is in the pudding. I always say it. We'll see what happens. But at least now the Giants have something to look forward to, a veteran Super Bowl winning quarterback. But you guys were there for a couple of years, and we saw how that turned out. So I don't know. But I'm pumped about it. I really am.
Jameis Winston reminds me of the Seinfeld episode where Kramer comes in and says, "Who wants to have fun?" It's like, me.
I do.
Who really wants to have fun? Yeah, Not me. I'm fine.
He's a good locker room guy, man. I heard Tiki talking about it. He was like, listen, this guy's going to be good for the locker room. He's going to lighten things up and, let these guys have fun. So I'm cool with him being on the team.
I want to say two things about the NFL. Number one, you just brought up Tiki Barber. Okay. You know me. All right. I was never a real Giant fan, and I really didn't like Tiki Barber. Didn't like him at all. I am such a fan of Tiki Barber right now. The show he does on WFAN, he's just so listenable. I really like listening to him. And the other thing is too, he's a really nice guy that unfortunately that never came through when he was with the Giants because of the times that the press always made big things about the things he said about Coughlin, the things he said about Eli. And quite honestly, he never said a lot of those things. So
right.
I really like listening to Tiki, and I think Tiki, he's one of those guys that, remember we were talking a couple of weeks ago, guys you don't like, and now you think about it and you like him. Maybe he's that guy for me.
Well, a lot of Giant fans didn't like him either.
Right.
Which is crazy, but that's what it was.
The other thing is, just so everybody knows, we are thinking about doing a live stream during the NFL draft. Not the whole draft, but maybe like the first 7 picks. We'll get through the Jets pick. And the Jets will probably mess us up by trading down to like 12 or 13 and we got to hang out. But we'll see. But I know it'll at least be exciting for the Giant fans because, Giants are going to be picking at least probably in the top 3. So I don't think they're going to trade down, or they might trade up. Who the heck knows at this point? Because there's probably still some room in the quarterback room. Bring him in. Let's go. Bring another one in.
Let's bring Eli back.
Yeah.
And this is the first time, I think, in a long time where every team still has their first round pick. No one has traded out of the first round yet. No one has moved forward or back. So we may get an exciting draft day, and we may also get just everyone making their picks. So should make for a very interesting day up in Green Bay there. Hopefully everyone's riding their bikes into the stadium and all whatever they do over there with in Green Bay. So
having their cheese curds and bacon and stuff like that. But guys, I'm hearing something. Something's coming closer. Mikey brought it up early. I hear it coming. Footsteps are getting closer. Mikey, here comes baseball. Thursday afternoon, the Yankees open up, I think, against Milwaukee.
Correct.
Yep. And the Mets are in Houston. This will be one of the few times that Mikey's rooting for the Mets.
100%.
But it's, listen, the teams are what they are. We all know who's on this team. We all know the injury problems. We all know that. But Mikey and Jeff wanted to make sure that we talked about the over and unders for wins, so that we can actually be, we can talk about this a little bit. Mikey, you might be our resident gambling aficionado. So I'm going to leave it to you to bring up the numbers, and then you can toss it to me and Jeff when you've got the numbers ready to go.
So
let's go.
So I have a couple, and I also have
I messed up. I'm sorry. One last thing before we even get started.
Oh.
I wanted to send our condolences to Brett Gardner and his family.
100%.
What he's going through with the loss of his son, I could not even imagine the loss of a child. And for him to be on vacation and have this happen, I just want to say, obviously our hearts go out, and all we can do is pray and hope that the family's okay at this point.
Yeah, Brett Gardner is a staple in the Yankee family, the Yankee fan family. I mean, I was a huge Brett Gardner fan.
Oh, yeah.
The videos of him slamming the helmet in the dugout, But even
Yeah.
outside of the funny antics he used to do, he was a great Yankee. He was a great Yankee to have on the base paths, a great fielder, great leadoff hitter.
Yeah.
One of the underrated Yankees, if you think about it. But that's not even important. Obviously, I think all of us, I don't care what, even if you're a Red Sox or a Houston fan, I'm sure you're feeling the same way. It's just a tragedy. It really is. Nothing worse than losing a child. So, our hearts absolutely go out to Brett Gardner and his family.
Yeah, I mean, I have a 15-year-old daughter myself, so you know that same age range. So I don't even couldn't even fathom the thought, and it's just, I just hope that they get some peace and they can, you know, celebrate his life and you know, keep moving forward. So
Absolutely. All right, but Mike, let's bring us back to business here. What are we talking?
So I have a couple of things that I'm interested in. One, before we get to Yankees and Mets, there's one over-under total that is screaming out at me that needs to be an over in everyone's books. It is the Cincinnati Reds, 78.5 wins. They have a young nucleus of guys, and they have Terry Francona as their manager now. You saw what he did.
I forgot about that.
I
forgot about that too.
You saw what he did in Cleveland with a same kind of roster, and Cleveland is now a perennial team that is always around, makes the playoffs. No one in that division is scaring you. The Cardinals are not what they used to be. The Cubs, we don't even need to go there. The Pirates, certainly not. And the Brewers, I don't think there's anyone there that can really scare anyone. 78.5 is easily the best over-under number that you could think of, just because of the manager. I think the manager alone there is going to get you at least 10 more wins than what you were going to get with Francona there.
I'll take the over.
I'll take the over too.
Yeah.
Mike, give me a number for the Toronto Blue Jays.
So the Toronto Blue Jays is also 78.5 wins.
There's something about that team that I really like, because I really think that guys like Dante Bichette and I think Vlad Jr., I think, and they don't have a horrible pitching staff. It's not horrible. I think they can be a surprise. And when I say surprise, I mean finish 500. I don't mean win the division. But I would take the over on them also.
I like that.
Yeah, I'll take the over too.
Yep.
Pick out another good one for us, Mikey.
So one that I'm very curious of what your thoughts are is the Sacramento / whatever Athletics.
The A's.
They are
under
71.5 is their total. Now they actually spent some money this year and actually brought in some guys. They want to try to build this up so that way when they get to Las Vegas, they're going to have a team that's going to be ready to go. 71 is not a crazy number.
Yeah, it's a low number too.
Yeah.
I'm going under. I can't bet the over for the A's. I don't care if it's 22. I can't bet the over for the A's ever. So I'm going to take the under.
71.5.
71.5.
Well,
that
last
would be
year
losing 90 games, and you would hit it. You would hit the
last
over.
Year,
90 games.
They won 69 games. I'm going to think they're better. I'm going to bet the over.
Okay, give me the under on that one.
They've added Severino, right?
Yep.
And I don't know who else.
They got a lot of people that are going to be excited to be there in Sacramento. I think watching these games. I think their attendance is going to be higher in Sacramento with only a 14,000 seat stadium than it was in Oakland last year.
Mike, there were more people seeing me tee off last week at Cedar Creek and Toms River than they had at opening day last year. So
that's fair. That's fair. But
any other ones jump out at you before we get to the Mets and Yankees?
No, I think
I'll give you one more actually. How about the Red Sox? Where are the Red Sox at?
So Boston is 86.5.
I think the Red Sox are going to be good this year.
I got the over.
I got the over too.
I go the over on that.
I have to take the under on principle, just like I took McNeese money line on principle, just because they're South Carolina's rival, they were playing Clemson. I had to take it on principle.
Yeah.
So on principle, I have to take the under. But because my fantasy baseball team, I have a couple of rules. There's no Red Sox and there are no Houston Astros on my fantasy baseball team. I actually did get a couple of Mets this year. I have Juan Soto I grabbed in
Nice.
the auction draft, and I think I also got did I get Alonso as well? Maybe I
Polar
did.
bear.
So yeah, a couple of Mets on the team. So definitely should be an interesting year. But let's get into the numbers that everyone wants us to talk about. Let's go with Teddy. Let's go with you guys first. They're very similar numbers. Mets over under is 90.5 wins.
I'm going to take the over. I'm going to go with the over. I think that they've got a lot of question marks on their pitching. But quite honestly, when you looked at the guys who were going to be candidates to be starters this year, they had nice spring trainings. They stayed relatively healthy. I mean, Minaya is coming back, and Frankie Montas, I don't care when he ever comes back. But the other guys pitched well. And I think our lineup's pretty darn good. When they get Alvarez back, I think they'll be that much better. I'm going with the over. I'm going with the over on this one.
I'm going to go with the over too, slightly over. I think they'll have 92 wins. And I'm going to take the over because of the lineup, right? Lindor, Soto, Alonso, Vientos, Alvarez when he comes back. That to me is a murderer's row to get through.
Nimmo.
Yep,
Right.
no question. The pitching, as you said, Uncle Ted, is definitely a concern, which is why the only reason why I don't see them getting to, like the 98, 100 range. It's that like the lineup can do it, right? If they had good pitching, but you have Clay Holmes, Tyler McGill, Griffin Canning, David Peterson. Sanga's solid, but that's just a rotation that would worry me. Like, I'm not saying they can't be good, but it certainly would worry you, right? But I think the Mets can overcome even bad pitching if that does happen with the firepower in the lineup. So yeah, give me the over on that for sure.
Mikey?
I'm going to make it very interesting. We're going to get to the end of September. They're going to have 90 wins, and they've already clinched the wild card spot in that division. And they have to win on the final day of the year, and I say they do. And I will also take very slightly over 91 wins for the Mets. So all three of us on the over, which means everyone should probably bet the under.
Bet the under
because they'll be
sure.
They'll be 90 and 62, and be one game off, knowing our luck.
Yeah, they won't have 82 wins. They'll miss it by a game, 100%. If we're going to lose.
What about those Yankees, Mike?
All right, so the number has come down considerably since the Garrett Cole and the Luis Gil injuries, and the Stanton injury, obviously, as well. It was at one point 94.5. It has now come down to 89.5 for the Yankees. And Jeff, I'll let you go first before I give you my thoughts on this Yankee team going into the year.
Yeah, that was clearly factoring in the Cole losses / wins he would have or wouldn't have, right? But I'm going to take the over, not by much. Again, same thing as the Mets. I think the Yankees will have 91 wins. Even without Cole, we're getting Gil back, and I think they'll be fine without him for a couple months. They'll tread water, and I said this last week and the week before. Boone can handle it. He's done it. And their bullpen is very good, right? When you have a good bullpen, you tend to win more games. So I think the Yankees will still be very good, but it's vital whoever they squeeze into the leadoff spot has a good year to give Judge men on base as much as possible. But I think the Yankees will still be good. They always are. So, yeah, give me the over for that one as well.
I would agree. I think they are comfortably over. I'm going to say 95, 96 wins for them. I think you're going to see Brian Cashman make a move here towards the trade deadline. I think some team's going to be out of it and looking to dump something, and he's going to go bargain hunting like he has the last couple of years and has made some pretty solid moves at the trade deadline. You look at Jazz last year was a great addition that they didn't spend anything on to get him. I think you're going to need one more pitcher at least from them, or you're going to have somebody from the minors come up and do really well. But I don't think anyone in this division is going to scare you. Maybe Boston's a little bit better than they were last year, but Tampa's taken a step back. I think Toronto is always going to be Toronto, somewhere in the middle there. And I think Baltimore is taking a step back this year. So I think that there's no reason why you can't get fat on your division teams. And not to mention, the AL Central is probably the worst division in all of baseball. So if you're playing those 6 games against Chicago, those should all be wins. So I think you could easily be a 95, 96 win team, and getting hopefully that number 1 overall seed and get that bye like you did last year. So, Ted?
Mike, a lot of the things you said, I completely agree with. I think that they will get fat on the American League. I think Baltimore has taken a step back. The Central Division of the American League, I think the big surprise team there is going to be Detroit this year. I think Detroit's going to have a really big year. But I do agree. Everybody else thinks, we all know Minnesota cannot beat the Yankees in any way, shape, or form.
Never.
And
Nope.
Cleveland always struggles against the Yankees.
Mhm.
But I can see the Yankees going over, maybe not 95 or so, but I can see them getting to 91, 92 easily. And then, like you said, that might be enough to get them the number 1. I think it would actually get them the number 1. And as far as you said Cashman adding somebody at the trade deadline, I think the trade deadline might be really interesting this year, because I think you're going to have a guy like that guy Alcantara from Miami that is probably going to be available. And it would not shock me to see David Stearns package, a Ronnie Mauricio and a Jet Williams, maybe even one of the young pitchers to try to pick him up. Because listen, let's face it, Dylan Cease is not getting traded. And if you're San Diego, why would you trade him?
Right.
Why would you? The only thing that would make you trade him is that I guess the owner passed away and now there's a whole estate thing going on and they might have to trade him because of money. But if you don't have to trade him for money or anything, you're going to keep him, because that's the only way you're going to compete with the Dodgers to stay within 5, 7, 8 games. So, I think, give me the Yankees, give me the over. I think that they will overcome the loss of Heel and Cole, and I think they'll be fine. So, looking
it's pretty
forward
amazing.
to it.
The Mets and the Yankees are so similar but so different, right? There's massive question marks for the Yankees in the lineup, but I have a ton of faith in their pitching staff, even with the injuries.
Yeah.
And the Mets are the complete opposite. I have serious questions and concerns about the pitching staff, but I have a ton of faith in their lineup, right? So they're literally on the opposite. It's like a mirror, right? They're the same but the opposite. So it's I expect big things out of both of them, though. I think they both have very good managers.
Yes.
I'm a huge fan of Mendoza.
Yeah.
And I didn't think it was going to work. I remember when they got him, I joked around with you, Uncle Ted, just, busting your chops like, oh, you got one of our Yankees, dirty laundry, right? Our remains. Man, I am eating. I have egg on my face after that one, because he has done a phenomenal job with that team.
I love him. Love him as a manager. He took that Yankee mentality and he brought it over to Flushing. And normally, when it comes to the Yankees, it annoys me how smug you Jack Tools are. Okay, but I think in this case, I think that was big because he was around winning for so long. He was able to walk in there, and other than never being a manager before, here's the thing: hey guys, I've won.
Yeah.
What are we going to do? And the players love him. They
love him. That I was just going to say that he was on. He was on one of the shows, one of the WFAN shows, and I noticed just the way he spoke. He's a fun-loving guy, right? Yes. But I think no one really knew that because he was he was a bench coach or a hitting coach. Yeah. What was he again? What was he for the Yankees?
I think he was the bench coach.
He was the bench coach. That's right. And you don't hear the bench coach speak. No. You don't even see him during the game. So when I heard the bench coach, no, that's not going to work. But the players love him. You could tell the way he speaks. He can relate to the younger guys and the older guys. But that ended up being one of the best moves the Mets have made. Actually, if you think about it.
people still to this day, you look at some of the people that cover the Mets and they have their YouTube channels, they love to rip into David Stearns with all that, oh, he's got the money now and he's shopping at the discount bin and all this stuff. They're not going to spend like drunken sailors. And David Stearns, how about this? He picked Mendoza as the manager. He put together that team last year, and that team was successful. How about we just take a step back and let him do his thing? He was a perennial winner in Milwaukee, and now he's doing his thing. And the thing I love about him, he don't listen to anybody else. He's doing his thing, and the owner, King Cohen, he lets him do whatever he needs to do.
Yep. So let's, before we get into the picks, I want the AL pennant winner, NL pennant winner, and World Series winner for everyone. We're probably gonna come back to these picks and light them all on fire by the time we get to probably July 4th. But Jeff, I'm curious to see your World Series matchup and ultimately World Series champion.
Ooh, on the spot.
That's how Mike
I'm going
does
to go. No, I love it. I'm going to say a rematch, Yankees-Dodgers. I think the Dodgers is, I don't want to say guaranteed. Nothing's guaranteed. But I think the Dodgers more than likely will get back because they're just too stacked. And I think the Yankees are still the best team in the AL, even with the injuries. And I think they have one of the best managers in the AL. So I would say Yankees-Dodgers round 2. Hate to do it, Mikey. I got to go Dodgers 2, Pete. I think they're going to repeat.
Dodgers and how many?
Ooh. I'm going to go 7. Let's have some fun.
All right,
I'm going to go Game 7. Game 7. But, yeah, I think the Dodgers repeat. What do you think?
Teddy, what do you think?
Well, it does kill me to say this. I would love to listen, my heart is saying the Mets are going to beat the Dodgers or the Dodgers are going to get picked. I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's going to be the Dodgers from the NL. I do think it's going to be the Yankees from the AL. And not because I'm so jacked about the Yankees. I just think that they are the best team in the AL. The AL is a little down. Honestly, I think the team that's going to give them a run in the playoffs is going to be Detroit. I really do. I think Detroit's going to give them everything they can handle, but I think it's going to be Yankees, Dodgers, and I think it's going to be Dodgers again. I can't. How do you beat the Dodgers? How do you beat them? Well, maybe you hope that Suzuki or Rohaki or Shoei eat bad sushi or something. That's the only way. It's the only way.
Yeah.
So, shocker! I'm going to take the Yankees as my American League choice.
I'm
you guys
shocked.
Have basically said everything. I know all this Yankee gear I have on. If I took somebody else, they would be checking me for a pulse to see if I was alive. National League, I can't take the Dodgers. I just can't. I'm sick of them. I want them to lose. That World Series just gave such a bad taste to that team, and I actually kind of like that team before the World Series. But I am actually going to go out on a limb and say it's going to be a rematch of the 2000 World Series. It's going to be a Subway Series, Yankees, Mets. We're going to have a fun October on this podcast. And my prediction is just like in 2000, it will be Yankees in 5 to win the World Series. So,
well, if the Yankees and Mets are in the World Series, we're going to a game.
Oh, 100%.
So start saving your money for a $4,000 ticket because we're definitely going 100%.
Exactly. Or just go to stands outside and just hang out there.
So I would do that too, man.
Even better.
I would do that. I'd rather spend $50 at the bar than $4,000 to go into a game. But we can find a way to go somehow.
Yep.
All right. Well, last week we talked about our top 3 sporting events. We had a lot of fun with that. We did get some people that reached out to us and said, oh, how could you leave off this? How could you leave off this? One of our fans, Ethan Reapy, actually sent in. And Jeff, why don't you give us what Ethan's top 3 were?
You got it. Ethan, first of all, thank you for writing in, man. You're the best. It's my cousin. I love him. So I'm glad that he's a listener. And like I said, Ethan, you're the best. Number 3 for Ethan is going to be March Madness. I wish he was here to explain his why and reasoning, but I'm pretty sure we all know, right? We're all watching it, so that's definitely a top 3. Number 2, the Super Bowl. And Ethan, I'm going to respond to that. I actually disagree. I don't think that's a top 3 event because it's more of like an entertainment show than it is a football game. I think we kind of touched on this last week. I actually like the championship weekend better, right? It's just more football. But I get it. I mean, the Super Bowl is still a great game. I haven't missed one in my whole life. And number 1, Easy-E, you, me, and Uncle Ted, must run in the family. Week 1 of the NFL season. Yeah. Mikey, you got to adjust your number 1. That is the best week of the year. And I think you know it deep down. I really do. Because when week 1 rolls around, it's the best, man. So, Ethan, you're the best. Number 3, March Madness. Number 2, Super Bowl. Number 1, week 1 of the NFL season.
And just like Ethan, reach out to us. Let us know what you think about some of the things we discussed. Listen, we're not right probably on almost anything. We're just like you guys. We just spout. That's what we do. But let us know what you're thinking. Let us know if there's any list that you want us to get to. You can send us what your list is, and then we'll work on that. But most important, like, subscribe, and tell people about the show. That's the best way to make the show grow and grow the algorithms, whatever that means.
I can't even spell algorithms.
No, I struggle with that.
I literally can't, I don't think.
But now, very quickly, we're about to go into our picks. And before we do that, what I want to do is remind everyone that the pick segment, the Jeff UFC picks, I still don't know how to pronounce the Jeff Huge FC picks. Well, you'll see it when it comes up. And Mikey Mush's pathetic picks. They're brought to you by JJ Comedy, the comedy shop. If you're looking for comedy, the comedy shop just has the best comedians. The best thing they do is they help organizations and people have fundraisers so that you don't have to stand in front of a ShopRite with your kid shaking a can for little league money or soccer money or uniforms, or if you're trying to raise money to add a wing onto a church or a school. These are fun ways to raise money. Everyone goes, everyone has fun. James takes care of everything from soup to nuts, getting you the comics, printing you tickets and flyers and everything else you need. And not only does he do that, but he has comedy shows. Shows coming up in New Jersey. If you're in New Jersey this week, Thursday night, the 27th, Aaron Berg is at Paisanos in East Rutherford, New Jersey. In Charleston on March 29th, which is Saturday, the Queen Street Playhouse. We've got Shelley Belly, who is Michelle Ryder, but her stage name is Shelley Belly. Very funny. If you've never seen her, you got to get there. Also, Dreamers in Moncks Corner, South Carolina, on March 31st. Carrie Caravas. And then at Well Crafted in Lansdale, PA, April 3rd is Chris Roach. Very, very funny guy. I got to work with him a few weeks ago. He is hysterical. And at the Wonders Theater in Myrtle Beach on May 11th, Shelley Belly, Michelle Ryder will be there again. She's a favorite there. It's a great place to see a show. And there's plenty of restaurants around there. It's a great venue. Once again, if you need tickets or information, go to jjcomedy.com for all your comedy needs. Now, Jeff, before we get to your picks, I'm giving you 20 seconds. Give me a quick rundown of how your picks went last week.
Well, unfortunately, the rundown is very simple. We went 2 of 3 in our 3-legged parlay again. So if you've been following my parlays for the past 3 events, you should still be in the black. You should still be in good shape and in the positive if you bet the same amount of money. But yeah, last week, same thing. We lost 2 out of the 3 fights and a close decision too. So it's what it is. It happens.
All right, well, we're going to go back to it again this week. And now it is time for Jeff's UFC picks. Jeff, take it away.
All righty, so we're going to do a 5-legged parlay this time, guys, because we're going to change the luck up a little bit. Instead of doing 3, Let's add 2 more. We're going to start with Lupe Godinez, who is -1. Don't laugh at the name. I laughed when I saw it too. Lupe Godinez, -192 over Julia Pilastri. Julia only has 2 fights in the UFC, and Lupe, I'm going to laugh every time now. Lupe has 12, and she's only 31, so experience will play a factor there. Next up, we are going to do Raul Rosas Jr., who is -310 over Vince Morales. No stats needed here. I think Rosas is the future of the UFC. He's an animal, hence the -310 odds. I think he finishes it in round 1. Next up, we're going to do Brandon Moreno, who is -205 over Steve Erceg. Moreno is a former champion and an absolute stud. And I think Erceg's a little overrated, so give me Moreno in that one. The last 2, we're going to do Lerone Murphy, who is -298 over Josh Emmett. Murphy is undefeated, and he's fought in other organizations, but the UFC, he's on an 8-fight win streak, which is very hard to do at that level. So last one we'll do, and this is the layup of the night, Joe Pfeiffer, -550 over Gastelum. Again, no explanation or stats needed. -550 speaks for itself. Joe Pfeiffer is a scary dude, man. If you guys want to watch the fight, I'd recommend just watching that one. Power puncher, up-and-comer, just a beast. And with those 5, it's pretty good. You're going to get a +372 total, and you got a bunch of heavy favorites in there. So there it is, Jeff's UFC picks for fight night this weekend.
All right. Thank you so much for that, Jeff. So, all right. So I got to put some money in my my DraftKings account and see if I can make some money.
Get some cheddar
Mikey,
goldfish.
Cheddar. I love cheddar goldfish. Although, are we allowed to eat them? I think that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. said that Cheez-Its and things that they're really bad for you.
Wow.
Yeah,
it has the chemicals in there.
But listen,
hey,
who knows? What is it? Red dye number 4. I don't know what that is. Who knows? Mikey, very quickly, how did you make out? You had a couple of things that you brought up, and let us know how that went.
So we split the 2 dart picks. Stephen Bunting got crushed by Chris Dobey 6 games to 2, and he was -1.5. So he was quite an upset there. But Michael Van Gerwen was +1.5, and he ended up winning 6-4. So 1-1 on those picks. The overs did not do very well this week. I think we were probably we were probably 9 and 15 in the first round, and then we were a little bit better. We were probably 7 and 9 in the second round. So didn't do great there, but we do have a couple of picks here this week, and I'm going to still ride the overs going forward because I think you're going to see a lot of games that are going to be big time overs in this next round. I think the Alabama game is going to be a track meet. You're just going to be going down back and forth, looking at a pong thing going into the net every single time. So still going to ride the overs going forward. But yeah, it was a fun weekend of bets. So
all right, so I want everybody to strap in. We are going to have some excellent picks by Mike. I kind of accidentally previewed the first one, but it is now time for Mikey Mush's pathetic picks. Mikey, take it away.
All right. So my nickname outside of this podcast is the King of Fakakta Football Leagues. So I love the UFL. I love the USFL back in the day. I actually have a whole card set of them. I love the XFL back in the day where they're running to grab the ball for the kickoff. Was one of my favorite things watching as a kid. So I am all in on this weekend's UFL Week 1. We are back. Football is back, boys. We are excited about this. So I have a twofer for the people again. I have 2 games, one on Friday, one on Saturday. Friday night, I'm going to take the St. Louis Battlehawks. They are probably the second best team in the UFL. They have the highest attendance. St. Louis does not want to lose another football team again, so they have been packing that dome with like 40,000 people to watch third-rate football, which is crazy to think about. But I guess if you lose a football team, you want it to be there. So I am going to take the Battlehawks -6 against the Houston Roughnecks. And then my second pick is the proverbial favorite for the UFL this year is the Birmingham Stallions. I think they've won the last 2 UFL championships or bowls, whatever they call the championship game there. They've won the last 2 years. I think they're going for a three-peat. So I'm going to take them -7 against the DC Defenders on Saturday, the 29th. As you're watching basketball, you're watching your first weekend of baseball. If it looks like it's miserable and it's 50 degrees outside, you're like, this is not baseball weather. We should be watching football. Throw these games on, have some fun. And yeah, those are my 2 UFL. Jeff's got the UFC. I got the UFL going on this week for my picks. So enjoy those 2 games. Enjoy opening day of baseball.
I will be watching those games for sure, Mike. For sure. I am also like you. I will, if it's football, I'm watching it. Guys, this was a fun show. I can't wait to come back next week. We'll have another update on the NCAA tournament, first weekend of baseball, UFL kicking off, UFC stuff. Guys, have a great rest of the week. Enjoy the weekend. This was fun. Arrivederci.